This is TWiT.
Did you read Jean-Louis Gasset's Monday note? So I thought I was overly effusive about the shift to Apple Silicon until Jean-Louis weighed in, former Apple president, way back when in the pre-Steve Jobs return era. Apple Silicon, he says it's the end for Wintel.
Oh, honey.
I kind of disagree.
That's we're just so glad that you're excited. That's.
I'm not sure I disagree with him. I'm not sure.
The thing with the point I feel is like it might, like, it's not Wintel necessarily. It might encourage Microsoft to do a better job of Windows on ARM. It might encourage Dell and HP to make more laptops with ARM processors because they want some of the characteristics that ARM delivers, like longer battery life. But it's very different. Like, a lot of people keep saying Mac on ARM, and it's really not that. Like, ARM is a tiny, tiny sliver.
Right.
Apple's not even using ARM cores. They're using an instruction set as part of a massive SoC with a lot of other components, and it's that's the important part.
And I don't
Apple
think
will just we want better displays.
Yeah, I don't think you can compete with that because Apple makes the whole stack. So I just
they have two big advantages. One is they're not a merchant silicon provider, which means they have no profit per loss per chip. They don't have to sell chips, and that's a whole different business. And they also only have one client, which is Apple. And so their only job is to run macOS as fast as anything on Earth. And that's a much smaller problem to solve than Qualcomm saying we have to support OpenGL on this, we have to support DirectX on that. We have, Samsung is complaining about this. Dell wants us to do that. Like, it is a completely different animal.
Let me just read you the salient last three paragraphs because he makes really the whole point there. He says, Intel execs know they missed the smartphone 2.0 revolution because of culture blindness. And I think we'd agree. They couldn't bear to part with the high margins generated by the x86 cash cow. They couldn't see that lower margins could be supported by unimaginable volume. This is, by the way, an industry-wide problem. Nobody understood what the iPhone meant. Steve Ballmer
they put a marketing person in charge instead of an engineer, like Ballmer. Like, it's almost exactly what happened to Microsoft.
Now, Gasset goes on, Intel's facing a more serious problem. The x86 commands high margins, not because of the chip, but because of the Intel Windows duopoly, meaning that all other things being equal, chips not running Windows get lower margins than an x86 CPU. Now, this is his deep knowledge of the industry. I don't know that, but that's what he says. Now, that union, that advantage, the Wintel duopoly, is about to disappear. Intel will face ARM-based SoCs running Windows on ARM with applications in PC-like quantities at lower prices. That leaves Intel with one path. If you can't beat them, join them. He says, and I've heard others say this too, Intel will retake an ARM license. It sold its ARM-based X-Scale business to Marvell in 2006. It was a flop. That was their attempt to do mobile. And come up with a competitive ARM SoC offering for PC OEMs. In other words, Intel will get in the Apple business. They'll say, all right.
On what process, though? I mean, like, if they could do a good process, they wouldn't have half the problems they have with x86 chips right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a technical issue, but then he also says margins are going to suffer because the ARM-based SoC field is already filled with very sharp competitors like Qualcomm and NVIDIA.
He hasn't seen Qualcomm's margins.
Right. Not so high. Qualcomm makes its money on licensing, not on chips.
Yeah. But they're charging a fortune for their 800 series this year.
Oh, are they? Yeah, the new one. Yeah. That's right. In fact, a lot of phones are going, I can't run an 865. That's just too expensive.
Or their prices are going through the roof.
Right. And I don't think the market's going to bear these phones getting well above $1,000. So he also says, watch out for AMD doing the same, ushering in and this is the important part, a new era of PCs based on ARM SoCs. And he says that's a problem because Intel's margins will be much lower there. So that really hits the business bottom line. It's not that Intel couldn't do ARM SoCs, they just can't get the margin that they're getting right now with the Wintel duopoly. I don't think he's far off on that. That's an interesting angle that I hadn't really thought about. Even if Intel, you raised the real issue, Rene. Even if Intel does do that, are they going to be great products? Probably not.
Well, the duopoly part is maybe salient. Like if he's only saying the alliance between Intel and Windows is what's the problem, then that probably is true because people won't be as dependent on that. Even now, AMD is getting huge buy-in because they're doing such good work with Threadripper and everything. So that's already under assault. This probably adds to that assault, but I don't think the separate. Maybe I was misreading. I don't think the separate parts are as problematic.
He says, it's not that they're losing Apple. That's 7% of the PC market share. It's not a big deal. He also says Apple's a pain in the ass to Intel. They make demands and complaints way out of proportion with the amount of revenue. He says losing Apple's more symbol than substance. However, the impact on Intel and the entire industry will be felt beyond Apple's small share on the PC market. And I think that's the really interesting thing. And you raised that. This isn't Apple on ARM. This is Apple SoCs, systems on a chip, that potentially, because of Apple's tight integration with the hardware and software, could make a Mac be something so well beyond any other PC that, especially with low power. I mean,
well, like the MacBook Air. I mean, it wasn't just the MacBook Air, and they were working with Intel, but that defined a generation of Ultrabooks, and Intel made a fortune off everything that spun out of Apple being so demanding and such a pain in the butt over that one computer.
Good point.
And that's going to happen with Apple Silicon now, not with Intel.
And really, you could say, well, AMD Threadripper, but that's not the laptop market, and the laptop market is so much bigger than the desktop market. The laptop market, you want a high performance for power ratio.
Yes.
And that's exactly what this Apple SoC could deliver.
Like a 12-inch MacBook with an Apple Silicon would be able to do 4K.
Yeah.
Like it would be able to render 4K, which you can't do with Intel.
Get 20-hour battery life.
Yeah. Without a fan.
Without a fan.
Because they're crazy about stuff like that, right? Like, I mean, that's the thing. So, yeah, you're right. Intel loses that overly demanding customer that allowed them then to go and sell what they had to develop for Apple to everybody else. Yeah, fair point.
So, well, maybe it is premature to declare the death of Wintel. It doesn't look good.
But also it's what Rene brings up is that this is something that Intel and even AMD can't deal with. If Intel were to manufacture an entire notebook from start to finish, they would be in with a chance. It's the integration, it's the level of being able to select every single component that's going to work efficiently with this CPU, with this GPU, with everything that's going to work together. They do build some hardware, they do build NUCs, they also build a lot of specifications. A lot of times, every time you see a brand new laptop or brand new desktop or brand new form factor, it is actually Intel saying here are the ingredients that you need to build a system like the one that we've just deployed. Remember that the dual screen with a hinge in the middle of it, it wasn't just an idea that Microsoft had. It was actually prototypes that Intel was showing off to people, to manufacturers, saying, please build this. We think it's a cool idea. But because they can never do that level of integration, just again, Rene made a really good point. It's not just the CPU. It's not just plug out the Intel, plug in something else, and boom, Bob's your uncle. It really is, we get to build everything all at once as one holistic whole, and that's the sort of thing that no Windows machine can compete with. Do you think it's a nice? I think it's a very nice balance of power against what Apple can't compete with, which is, thank you, but you only make 6 different computers and none of them are suitable for our hardware requirements. We're going to have to go elsewhere or build our own.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. Now, there are plenty of other contrary indicators. One, we don't know if Apple can execute. I mean, there's a big question mark.
That's true.
We think they can. It seems pretty clear they've done so well with their iPhones and iPads that they probably can. So I think that's a low risk thing. The other thing that maybe is a bigger risk is you cannot throw away the power of marketing and the willingness of people to buy crap. So it may well be that Apple offers this amazingly great combination of features, and it doesn't in any way impact Wintel. That they just humble. Yeah. I don't know why people buy Windows machines today. It baffles me. They're demonstrably crappy.
I wouldn't say crappy. They just suit a need that Apple isn't filling.
Yes, there's a hole.
And also,
that's right. There'll always be that hole too.
Yeah, and also, I think what's great about Apple is that they don't make rental cars. They don't make fleet vehicles. They make vehicles that are really, really interesting and exceptional in their own rights. However, there are a lot of people that I really just want a Toyota Celica. Give me something that's not necessarily high performance, not necessarily the most reliable thing, but it's on the lot. I can get in the color that I want. They're not going to tell me that, no, you don't need cup holders this season. And that's how it works.
That's really the defense. That's why Wintel is not dead, is you could have a demonstrably better... You can have a demonstrably better platform. It doesn't, but you don't fill all the gaps in the industry. You don't make the fleet vehicles. So there's plenty of room for Wintel to survive forever. Gamers, there's a lot of places it can continue. There are still a handful of people who really like building their own computers with rotating LED fans. Those people
and Regedit. Don't forget Regedit. I'm not going to give up my Regedit.
Well, I mean, Windows is such an awful operating system. I feel so sorry for people who are using Windows because Microsoft can't code their way out of a paper bag. It's just awful.
I wouldn't say awful. I would say, again, mediocre.
Mediocre, but that's awful. Mediocre in your operating system is awful.
Well, no, I mean, okay, and it's
you're right. It runs.
The old MacBook keyboard was awful. The current one is mediocre.
Yes,
I'm saying that it's usable. It's fine. It serves. That I think one of the key differences though is that. Even though the Mac has its share of boring, productive software where how exciting can it possibly be? It's just here to serve a function. I think that the Mac and iOS apps, the developers are more sprung towards, let's find a way to make this a little bit more elegant, or let's find a way to, we've got a successful app, let's find a way to sneakily make it better, as opposed to let's tread water and make sure it's compatible. So that's one of the reasons why the Mac shines a lot better. Once again, I try not to take my eye off of the people that, look, I'm not excited. I always use my own relationship to cars, that I don't care about cars. I want a car that's reliable. I want to get in there, turn the key, it goes. I want to find a place to park, and that's really it. Whereas there are other people are going to say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that you think the Ford Crown Victoria is a cool car." I'm saying it is cool. It's simple. It's easy to repair. You can get parts in a junkyard. It's wonderful because if people aren't excited about this stuff, it's hard to convince them that there's a reason why you're spending an extra $200 or $300. Say you can tell them that, well, you're going to get better support, it's better built, you're probably going to get at least 5 years, if not 6, 7, or 8 years out of this, versus 3 or maybe 4 out of your Windows machine. But again, they're into the store, they don't really care, and they say that these are the people that say, "Ooh, this has an LED keyboard. Great, let's get this one."
Truthfully, it boils down to one word. It's this: Wintel will survive for the same reason Android will survive: choice. That's the one thing that Apple can't offer is choice.